The distress beacon pierced through the cosmic void like a dying star's final scream. Captain Lyra Zolani pressed her four-fingered hands against the communication console, her bioluminescent patches flickering with desperation. Around her, the bridge of the Harmony song shuddered under another plasma bombardment from the Korvac warships surrounding their small diplomatic vessel. "Please," she whispered into the transmitter, her translator struggling to convert her melodic language into Galactic standard. "This is the Zealoty Republic. We are under attack by the Korvac Empire. Our colonies are burning. Our people are dying. If anyone receives this message, please help us. We have never harmed another species. We grow gardens, not weapons. We sing to our children, not war chants. Please, someone help us." The beacon launched just as the ship's shields failed completely. Lyra watched through the viewport as the signal capsule disappeared into hyperspace, carrying her people's final hope to whatever civilization might care enough to answer. The Korvac had been systematic in their conquest, overwhelming 3 Zealoty worlds in as many weeks. Their military was non-existent. The Zealoty had never needed one. They were gardeners, philosophers, musicians. The concept of interstellar war was as foreign to them as breathing underwater. Commander Thekvar materialized on her screen, his reptilian features twisted with cruel satisfaction. The Korvac general's scales gleamed with battle-earned scars, and his predatory eyes held the cold hunger of a species that had evolved to hunt. "Surrender now, plant tender," he hissed through the translator. "Your pathetic distress call will bring no salvation. The galaxy knows what happens to species that interfere with Korvac expansion. Your worlds will serve as agricultural colonies. Your people will work until they die. Then we will find others." Lyra's patches dimmed to a sorrowful blue. "Why? What did we do to deserve this? We've never threatened anyone. We share our food, our music, our knowledge freely." Thekvar's laugh was like breaking glass. "That is precisely why you deserve this prey creature. The strong take from the weak. It is a natural order. Your weakness invited our strength." The transmission cut as Korvac boarding pods slammed into the hull. Lyra could hear the screech of metal being carved apart, followed by the heavy footsteps of soldiers in combat armor. She had perhaps minutes before they reached the bridge. Her people had no weapons, no combat training, no hope of resistance. But the beacon was away. Somewhere in the vast galaxy, someone might hear their plea. Far across the galaxy, on a blue world orbiting a yellow star, the Zealoty distress signal broke through Earth's deep space monitoring network like a thunderclap. At the Mars Defense Station, Lieutenant Sarachin sat up straight in her chair as the alien transmission played through her headset. The melodic, desperate voice made her chest tighten with an emotion she recognized immediately: protective fury. "Command, we got an alien distress call. Audio only, but it's heartbreaking. They're under attack by something called the Korvac Empire, requesting permission to forward a Terra command immediately." Admiral Rebecca Santos was reviewing fleet deployments when the signal reached her office in Geneva. She listened twice, her weathered face growing darker with each repetition. Around the table, the other members of Earth's High Command sat in stunned silence. They had been monitoring galactic communications for 2 centuries, learning languages, studying cultures, preparing for first contact. This was not how they had imagined it would happen. "They're herbivores," whispered Dr. James Morrison, the xenoculture specialist. "Look at the linguistic patterns, the cultural references. They're peaceful gardeners being slaughtered by a predator species." General Marcus Thompson slammed his fist on the table. "Like hell they are. Not on our watch." Admiral Santos studied the star charts her analysts had prepared. The Zealoty Republic is 14 days away at maximum burn. The Korvac Empire. She paused, reading the intelligence reports. They're a militaristic species, conquest-based society. They've absorbed 17 other civilizations in the past century. 18, Dr. Morrison corrected quietly. "If we don't act." The room fell silent. Earth had spent 200 years building the most devastating war machine in their galaxy, originally intended to protect themselves from the hostile universe they expected to find. Instead, they had discovered a galaxy where most species were peaceful, cooperative, even pacifistic. Humanity was an anomaly. Apex predators who had evolved on a death world, who had turned warfare into an art form, who had built civilization despite their violent nature, not because of its absence. Ma'am, Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled through the intercom. We're getting more signals. The attack is spreading. 3 more Zealoty worlds are under assault. Admiral Santos stood, her decision crystallizing like ice. Signal the First Fleet. Full mobilization. Signal the Second and Third Fleets. Prepare for immediate deployment. Signal Colonial Defense. We're stripping the outer systems of their protection. General Thompson grinned with predatory anticipation. What's our mission profile, Admiral? Santos looked at the star chart showing the locations of the Zealoty worlds, now marked with red threat indicators. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of humanity's collective rage. The Zealoty called for help. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten someone under Earth's protection. Mission profile is simple, General. We're going to show the Korvac what real apex predators look like. The UES Retribution emerged from hyperspace like a steel leviathan breaching cosmic waters. Admiral Santos stood on the bridge, watching as her flagship's sensors painted the battlefield in stark detail. The Zealoty homeworld of Redania hung before them, its normally green continents scarred with fires visible from orbit. Korvac dreadnoughts formed a blockade around the planet, their angular hulls bristling with weapons designed for planetary bombardment. Tactical report, Santos ordered. Commander Kate Phillips consulted her displays with professional calm. 47 Korvac vessels in system. Mix of battleships, cruisers, and troop transports. They're maintaining bombardment positions over the major population centers, detecting massive ground forces on 3 continents. Casualties. Preliminary estimates suggest 12 million Zealoty dead. The Korvac are thorough. Santos felt a familiar cold rage settling over her, the same emotion that had driven humanity to the stars. Signal the fleet. Battle formation, Omega. I want those transports dead first. Cut off their ground support. Then we disable their capital ships. The Korvac High Command wants to survive this encounter. They're going to answer for every Zealoty life they've taken. The First Fleet materialized around the Retribution, like a pack of wolves answering their Alpha's call. 68 ships of the line, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and warfare doctrine. The Vengeance, the Righteous Fury, the Never Again, names that reflected humanity's relationship with violence and justice. On the Korvac flagship Bone Crusher, General Thekvar stared at the sensor readings with growing unease. These unknown vessels were massive, their energy signatures unlike anything in Korvac databases. Worse, they moved with coordinated precision that spoke of centuries of combat experience. What species builds ships like these? His tactical officer hissed. Unknown, sir, but they're launching fighters. Hundreds of them. Thekvar watched as a human fighter craft swarmed toward his fleet. They moved wrong. Too fast, too aggressive, pulling maneuvers that should have liquefied their pilots. Open channels. I want to speak with their commander. Admiral Santos accepted the transmission, her image appearing on the Korvac bridge. Thekvar had expected another herbivore species, perhaps larger than the Zealoty, but equally soft. Instead, he found himself looking at a creature with forward-facing eyes, a predator's gaze, and an expression of controlled fury that made his scales itch with ancestral warnings. I am General Thekvar of the Korvac Empire. You are interfering in a legitimate conquest. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Santos smiled, and Thekvar felt something cold settle in his stomach. Human smiles, he would learn, were not expressions of joy. General, I am Admiral Rebecca Santos of the United Earthspace Navy. You have attacked a species under our protection. You have 14 seconds to begin withdrawing from Zealoty space before we demonstrate why humanity doesn't make idle threats. Your protection? Thekvar's laugh was forced. These plant tenders call for help across the entire galaxy. Do you know how many species answered? None. We are apex predators. Human. We take what we want. No, Santos replied quietly. You were apex predators. We're about to show you what that term really means. The human fighters struck first, moving with lethal precision that defied everything the Korvac understood about space combat. Their pilots pulled 15G turns without hesitation, launched missiles at impossible ranges, and coordinated attacks with machine-like efficiency. The first wave of Korvac interceptors simply ceased to exist, vaporized by weapons that seemed to anticipate their every move. How are they surviving those accelerations? Thekvar's pilot gasped. The answer came as human capital ships opened fire. Their weapons weren't just advanced. They were designed by a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing. Kinetic rounds traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched through Korvac shields like they were tissue paper. Energy beams that could slice a moon in half carved through armor plating with surgical precision. But it was the tactics that truly terrified the Korvac. Humans didn't just attack. They hunted. They separated wounded ships from the herd, disabled them precisely, and left them alive but helpless. They targeted command structures, communication arrays, and life support systems with sadistic efficiency. They fought like a species that had evolved to kill everything on their home planet, and then turned that same ruthless efficiency toward protecting others. The Korvac troop transports died first, just as Admiral Santos had promised. The massive vessels, loaded with ground forces meant to complete the conquest of Verdania, became expanding clouds of debris within minutes. The orbital bombardment platforms followed, their crews broadcasting surrender signals that the humans ignored with chilling indifference. On Verdania's surface, Captain Lyra watched through the viewport of her prison transport as human dropships began landing near the major cities. She had never seen vessels like these, sleek, angular craft that moved like predatory birds. As the transport doors opened, she caught her first glimpse of humanity's ground forces. They were terrifying. Human soldiers emerged wearing powered armor that made them look like mechanized demons. They moved with fluid coordination, speaking in short, efficient bursts while scanning the environment with instruments that seemed to catalog every threat within kilometers. But it was their eyes that made Lyra's patches flicker with fearful awe. The focused, hunting gaze of creatures that had climbed to the top of their world's food chain and never looked back. The Korvac guards who had been tormenting prisoners moments before suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't comprehend. Human Marines didn't just fight. They systematically dismantled resistance with cold efficiency. They used non-lethal weapons when possible, switching to lethal force only when absolutely necessary, but their restraint somehow made them more frightening, not less. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez crouched behind the ruins of Zealoty Cultural Center, her squad spread in a perfect defensive formation around rescued civilians. Through her helmet's display, she could see the thermal signatures of Korvac forces regrouping 3 blocks away. Her translator picked up their panic communications as they tried to understand what had hit them. "Contact front," whispered Corporal Jean through the comm. 12 hostiles advancing on the civilian shelter. Rodriguez studied the tactical display. The Korvac were using Zealoty prisoners as human shields, driving them forward while hiding behind their terrified forms. It was a coward's tactic, but an effective one against most species. Unfortunately for Korvac, they had never faced an enemy that specialized in impossible precision. "Sniper 1, do you have clean shots?" Lieutenant Sarah Kim's voice was calm from her position atop a partially collapsed tower. "Affirmative, Sergeant. All targets marked. Zealoty civilians are wearing different fabric. Thermal shows clear distinction. Take them." The Korvac soldiers died so quickly their prisoners didn't realize what had happened. Kim's rifle used guided projectiles that could change direction mid-flight, following program trajectories that curved around innocent bodies to find their intended targets. To the Zealoty, it looked like magic. To humanity, it was Tuesday. Rodriguez moved forward, her translator switching to the melodic Zealoty language. "You're safe now. We're here to help." The rescued Zealoty stared at her with wide, luminous eyes. One of them, an elderly female with silver blue skin, reached out tentatively to touch Rodriguez's armor hand. You came," she whispered. "The signal Captain Lyra sent. You actually came." "We heard your call for help," Rodriguez replied gently. "No one threatens innocent people while Earth is watching." Above the planet, the space battle had become a rout. The Korvac fleet was scattered, their formation broken by human tactics that seemed to anticipate every move. Admiral Santos watched as her ships herded the surviving enemy vessels like wolves driving prey, forcing them into positions where surrender was the only option. General Thekvar's flagship limped through space, its weapons disabled, its engines failing. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to restore basic systems, while human fighters circled like sharks scenting blood. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "the humans are hailing us again." Admiral Santos appeared on the screen, her expression unchanged from their first conversation. Behind her, Thekvar could see human officers working with machine-like efficiency, coordinating rescue operations and orbital support for ground forces. "General, your fleet is defeated. Your ground forces are in full retreat. I'm offering you one chance to surrender unconditionally." Thekvar's pride warred with his survival instincts. What species are you? Your combat efficiency is impossible. No civilization could evolve such devastating capabilities. Santos leaned forward slightly. "We evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us, General. We learned to be more dangerous than our environment. When peaceful species like the Zelathi call for help, we don't see a tactical situation. We see family being threatened." "Family?" Thekvar was genuinely confused. "But you've never met them before." "Doesn't matter. They needed help. That makes them ours to protect." The concept was so alien to Korvac, thinking that Thekvar struggled to process it. His species conquered through strength and fear. They took what they wanted because they could. The idea of risking everything to protect strangers was incomprehensible. "What are your terms?" he asked finally. "Complete withdrawal from Zelathi space. Reparation for the damage you've caused. And full intelligence on your military capabilities and territorial holdings. And if I refuse?" Santos's smile returned, and this time Thekvar understood why human expressions of joy were so terrifying. "Then we stop holding back." The implications hit him like a physical blow. This devastating display of force, this impossible precision, this overwhelming superiority. The humans have been restraining themselves. "You were toying with us?" "We were being merciful, General. We don't like unnecessary killing. But if you force our hand, we'll show you what humanity looks like when we're actually trying to win." Thekvar looked around his ruined bridge, thinking of the scattered fleet and the ground forces that were surrendering en masse to human marines. If this was human mercy, their wrath would be apocalyptic. I surrender." The Korvac Empire surrenders unconditionally. On Verdania's surface, Captain Lyra found herself in a human medical facility, receiving treatment for injuries sustained during her captivity. The humans who tended to her were gentle, professional, but she could see the predator beneath their careful bedside manner. They moved with controlled violence, like coiled springs ready to unleash destruction at a moment's notice. Dr. Michaelchin finished scanning her injuries and smiled, a genuine expression of warmth that somehow made it more frightening, not less. "You're going to be fine, Captain. Your people are safe. The Korvac won't be bothering anyone for a very long time." "How?" she whispered. "How did you defeat them so easily?" "They conquered 17 civilizations. They were unstoppable." Dr. Chin sat down beside her bed, his eyes showing depths of experience that made her patches dim with awe. "Captain, there's something you need to understand about humanity. We're not like other species. We didn't evolve in paradise. We clawed our way up from hell. Every instinct we have was shaped by a world that tried to kill us every single day. When someone calls for help, we don't calculate odds or consider politics. We just respond. But why? Why risk yourself for strangers?" The human's expression grew serious. "Because that's what strength is for, Captain. Not to take from others, but to protect those who can't protect themselves." The Korvac had it backwards. Real apex predators don't hunt the weak. We hunt the things that hunt the weak. 3 months after the liberation of Verdania, Captain Lyra stood on the observation deck of the human space station Sanctuary, watching construction drones rebuild her homeworld's orbital infrastructure. The sight still seemed impossible. These creatures had contained violence, working with delicate precision to restore what the Korvac had destroyed. Admiral Santos joined her at the viewport. carrying 2 cups of a human beverage called coffee. Lyra had developed a taste for it during her recovery, though the stimulant effects were far stronger on zealoty physiology than on human. The Galactic Council has formally invited Earth to join, Santos said without preamble. Apparently, news of the Korvac defeat has spread to every corner of the galaxy. Lyra's patches flickered with curious patterns. And your response? We accepted with conditions. Any species that attacks peaceful civilizations will face the combined might of Earth's fleets. We're establishing what we call the protection protocols. Through her studies of human culture, Lyra had learned to read their facial expressions. Santos wore the look of a predator contemplating prey. There are others like the Korvac, aren't there? 17 known aggressive expansionist species. The Vorthac hegemony has been enslaving agricultural worlds for centuries. The Nexus Collective treats sentient beings like resources to be harvested. The Crimson Fleet are essentially space pirates with delusions of empire. Lyra felt her natural pacifist nature recoil from the implications. You're planning to hunt them. We're planning to stop them. Santos turned from the viewport, her eyes holding that terrible human focus. The galaxy has been living in fear for too long, Lyra. Peaceful species huddle on their homeworlds, while predators roam free. That ends now. But the violence, surely there must be diplomatic solutions? Santos's laugh held no humor. We tried diplomacy with the Korvac, remember? Right up until they started using your people as shields. Some problems can only be solved with superior firepower applied with surgical precision. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Earth. A new distress signal had been detected, this time from the General Shepherds of Kepler, 442b, a species of ethereal beings who had achieved enlightenment through complete nonviolence. They were under attack by the Vorthac hegemony. Santos read the tactical brief with growing anger. The Vorthac are using neural subjugation technology. They're turning the Shepherds into living batteries for their psionic weapons. How long until the fleet can reach them? 2 weeks at maximum burn. But the Vorthac have had a month head start. By the time we arrive... Lyra watched the human admiral struggle with the limitations of physics and felt something new stirring in her peaceful heart. The desire for her own people to be stronger, faster, more capable of protecting others. There might be another way, she said quietly. The Zealoty have developed quantum communication networks across our entire sector. If we could patch into their system, coordinate with local resistance groups. Santos's predatory smile returned. You're learning to think tactically, Captain. I like it. Within hours, the Sanctuary had become a coordination hub for the most ambitious rescue operation in galactic history. Human tactical officers worked alongside Zealoty engineers, their species' different approaches to problem-solving creating solutions neither could have achieved alone. The plan was audacious even by human standards. Instead of waiting for the fleet to arrive, they would coordinate with every peaceful species in the region, turning the galaxy's gardeners and philosophers into an intelligence network capable of guiding precision strikes from unprecedented distances. Dr. Morrison, who had been studying Vorthac psychology, provided the key insight. They're overconfident. The Vorthac have never faced organized resistance before. They treat each conquest as an isolated event, never considering that their victims might coordinate with each other. The operation began at 0347 Galactic Standard Time. Across 17 star systems, sleeper cells of human special forces that had been prepositioned during the Korvac crisis activated simultaneously. They had been waiting in deep space, powered down to avoid detection, for exactly this kind of situation. Lieutenant Commander Jessica Park materialized in the Kepler system aboard the stealth destroyer Silent Death. Her ship's exotic matter drive allowing instantaneous travel that bypassed traditional hyperspace entirely. Around her, a dozen similar vessels phased into normal space, their crews trained specifically for this type of impossible rescue. Tactical report. 12 Vorthac dreadnoughts in orbit around Kepler 442b. They've got some kind of neural extraction facility on the surface, detecting approximately 40,000 gentle shepherds in captivity. Park studied the tactical display. The Vorthac ships were massive, heavily armored, and designed to project psionic energy across planetary distances. but they had never faced an enemy that specialized in stealth strikes against superior forces. Signal to cell teams. Coordinate pattern Delta. I want those extraction facilities neutralized first. Then we disable their fleet from the inside out. The attack began with sabotage. Human operatives who had infiltrated Vorhack supply lines months earlier activated dormant viruses in their computer systems. Navigation failed first, then life support, then weapons targeting. The Vorhack crews found themselves fighting their own ships while an invisible enemy picked them apart piece by piece. On the planet's surface, Marine Captain David Kim led a squad of specialists through the neural extraction facility. The sight that greeted them would haunt their dreams for years. Hundreds of luminous beings suspended in containment fields while machines drained their life force to power Vorhack weapons. Jesus Christ, whispered Corporal Thompson. They're using them as batteries. Kim felt the cold rage that made humans so dangerous in combat. Breach charges on every containment unit. Full extraction protocol. And someone find me the Vorhack commander responsible for this. The gentle shepherds were unlike any species humanity had encountered. They communicated through harmonic resonance. Their ethereal forms more energy than matter. As the Marines freed them from their containment, their gratitude washed over the humans like a warm tide of pure emotion. But it was their reaction to human violence that truly shocked the rescue teams. Instead of recoiling from humanity's capacity for destruction, the shepherds embraced it with profound understanding. Your darkness serves the light, one of them sang to Captain Kim. We see the pain you carry to protect others. This is the greatest gift, to sacrifice your own peace so others may find theirs. The realization hit Kim like a revelation. Humanity's violent nature wasn't a flaw to be overcome. It was a tool to be wielded with wisdom, a necessary darkness that allowed light to flourish. 2 years after first contact with the Zealoty, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Admiral Santos stood before the assembled representatives of 47 peaceful civilizations in the newly constructed Galactic Protection Assembly on Earth's moon. Behind her, holographic displays showed the current status of humanity's ongoing campaigns against predator species across known space. The Crimson Fleet has been neutralized, she reported to the Assembly. Their leadership is in custody. Their ships have been converted to refugee transport vessels, and their former territories are being administered by a coalition of their former victims. Grateful harmonics filled the chamber as species after species expressed their thanks. The gentle shepherds created a symphony of pure emotion that brought tears to human eyes. The crystal gardens of Proxima grew new formations that sparkled with appreciative light. The Zealoty performed a traditional song of gratitude that lasted for 17 minutes and left no dry eyes in the assembly. But Santos wasn't finished. However, our intelligence networks have identified a new threat. The Void-Touched are moving into formerly Korvax space. They're not conquerors. They're something worse. They consume entire civilizations, leaving nothing behind but empty space. The chamber fell silent. Even the most optimistic species had heard whispers of the Void-Touched, ancient beings from the space between galaxies who treated sentient life as food. Captain Lyra, now serving as a Zealoty representative to Earth, raised her hand. What are you proposing, Admiral? Santos' expression held the weight of difficult decisions. Full mobilization. Every human fleet, every allied species, every resource we can muster. This isn't about protecting individual worlds anymore. This is about the survival of sapient life in our galaxy. Dr. Morrison stepped forward with his latest intelligence briefings. The Void-Touched aren't like the species we've faced before. They don't want territory or slaves or resources. They want to unmake reality itself. To return the universe to the empty darkness they consider perfection. Representative Delon of the Crystal Gardens pulsed with worried light. How can we fight beings that seek to destroy existence itself? Santos smiled, and by now the assembled aliens understood what that expression meant from a human. The same way we fought every other threat, Representative, together, with extreme prejudice, and with the absolute certainty that no one threatens our family while we still draw a breath. The mobilization that followed dwarfed every military operation in galactic history. Human shipyards worked around the clock, to produce vessels designed specifically for fighting enemies that existed partially outside normal space-time. Allied species contributed in ways that played to their strengths. The Zealoty grew organic computers that could process hyper-complex calculations. The Gentle Shepherds provided psionic early warning networks. The Crystal Gardens created materials that could hold their structure across dimensional boundaries. But it was the transformation of humanity itself that proved most significant. 2 years of protecting the galaxy had changed them. They were still apex predators, still capable of devastating violence, but they had found their true purpose. They were no longer warriors. They were guardians. Captain Kim, now promoted to colonel, led the first scouting mission into void-touch space. His ship, the Eternal Vigil, had been equipped with technology that shouldn't have existed, a fusion of human engineering and alien innovation that created capabilities beyond any single species. What they found in the empty systems was worse than anyone had imagined. The void touch didn't just destroy civilizations. They erased them from reality itself. Planets remained, but they were hollow, lifeless, as if the very concept of life had been surgically removed from the universe. "My God," whispered a sensor operator. "It's like they're unmaking the past. The civilizations that lived here, it's as if they never existed at all." Kim studied the readings, his tactical mind already adapting to this new form of warfare. Signal command. "Tell them we're not just fighting for the future anymore. We're fighting for the right of existence itself to continue." The final battle, when it came, took place not in space, but in the quantum foam between dimensions. Human fleets, protected by Zealoty organic shields and guided by Shepherd prescience, engaged entities that existed as living contradictions, beings of pure negation that sought to cancel out the positive energy of life itself. Admiral Santos commanded from the bridge of humanity's newest flagship, the Defiant Hope, as her fleet engaged enemies that couldn't be seen, only felt as wrongness in the fabric of reality. Human weapons that fired conceptual bullets, Zealoty-grown computers that calculated impossible geometries, Crystal Guard materials that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, all focused on a single goal, the right to exist. The battle was won not through superior firepower, but through superior purpose. The Void Touch sought to unmake reality because they found existence meaningless. Humanity and their allies fought back with the absolute conviction that every life, every dream, every moment of joy or sorrow was worth preserving. In the end, it was a Gentle Shepherd who delivered the final blow, a song of such pure affirmation that it caused the Void Touch to remember what they had once been before they chose negation. The ancient being simply stopped, not destroyed, but transformed back into the positive energy they had rejected eons ago. Standing on the observation deck of the Defiant Hope, as the fleet returned home, Admiral Santos found herself joined by representatives of every species they had protected. The galaxy was safe, but more than that, it was united in a way it had never been before. "What happens now?" asked Captain Lyra. Santos looked out at the stars, each one representing worlds where children played safely, where artists created beauty, where philosophers pondered existence without fear. "Now we keep watching," she said simply. "The galaxy called for help once. We answered, and we'll keep answering, for as long as anyone needs protection." In the distance, Earth shone like a blue jewel, a death world that had given birth to the galaxy's greatest guardians. And across the cosmos, on 1,000 peaceful worlds, children fell asleep to lullabies that spoke of the humans who watched over them in the darkness, ready to answer any cry for help. The apex predators had found their true prey, anything that threatened the innocent, and they would never stop hunting.